everyone. Welcome back to the Acolyte podcast. Today we are down for something just a little different. We will be interviewing
Nimue of the Lake
and get her opinion on the first episode of Flying Hot Ds. So we've had our first episode.
Yes.
What was your opinion of the opening?
As in the intro to the episode and how it was different than Game of Thrones?
How it was handled. That was Emma Darcy. They play older Rhaenyra.
I liked it. I won't lie.
It added, in my opinion, it added something just completely different. We didn't have voiceover for the original cold opening. And that's what this was supposed to be. Their cold opening. And for me, it was almost dreamlike enough that you are able to accept the flashback.
Yes, I agree with that. I have to say, in the beginning of the episode, my favorite thing about it was that whenever they went to start into the intro, like the Game of Thrones intro, that everybody fell in love with the iconic song and how they did the clockwork animations of the whole country and everything from Game of Thrones that everybody loves so much. They changed it just enough to make it its own, but it gave me, I don't know about you, but it gave me the Witcher vibes with how they left the emblem at the end.
Yes, I do get the Witcher vibes, but I want to point out a fact that dragon is a gold dragon on a black field, not a red dragon on a black field.
Yes.
That differential is going to be very important going forward. That matters. So that's something you need to keep in mind as a non-book reader. Another thing that I loved is, I don't know if you noticed, that was not the original theme from the opening. That was Jon and Daenerys' theme played over each other. That was the Song of Ice and Fire.
But that would make sense considering the end of the episode and what we learned. So, I mean, that kind of ties that all together.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yes, I noticed that in the episode because, you know, we used to, especially while house cleaning, when you lived with the Acolyte family.
Yes.
Yes, we'll use that term. You know, I used to play, you know, they have that all over YouTube. The winter theme and the Daenerys theme laid over each other all over the place. So whenever I noticed that, somebody got smacked a lot, you know. You know how I do. Tap, 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 tap. Oh my gosh! It was amazing.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. It was exciting.
Oh yes, I loved that part. So there's some details in the opening I want to go over when it comes to acting-wise. Patty Constantine, I'm not exactly for sure on everybody's name pronunciations, and I'm not exactly for sure on everybody's names yet, but I'm gonna learn them. You know.
Hey, you know me. I don't even know their names. I know who they play, and I know them just a little from the episode.
But a few really standout moments for me in that scene was Rhaenys' reaction is so understated that the talent of her, that actress. Did you notice the minor lip twitch and the minor eye twitch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's a stage actress. She is going to be amazing, and I'm already in love with Rhaenys and Corlys. They are power team vibes. They are my vibes right now. And the way Patty reacted, that's Viserys' actor, when he got named with Aemma Targaryen, Aemma Arryn Targaryen by marriage. Just those little bitty bits of it just made it everything that... how did you feel? What did you...
I'll be honest with you, having watched Game of Thrones, I knew what Harrenhal was, just for the fact it was cursed. And then, you know, you hear a little bit about the Riverlands whenever the mountain goes through and due to Tywin's orders and, you know, wipes them all out. But it never occurred to me that Harrenhal was actually a Targaryen area.
Well, because here's what happened. Harren the Black built that hall. That hall that they filmed in was the Hall of 100 Hearths. That's why it was so large. Harren the Black wanted to build the biggest, and it was like Ironborn in the histories and all of that stuff in the past. It got burnt when Aegon conquered. and has not been given to anybody else. Had not been given to anybody else until really you get the way of Harrenhal that's played in the Game of Thrones show. It's passed from hand to hand to hand, but the Targaryens use it for even the great tourney where Rhaegar meets Lyanna Stark was at Harrenhal.
See, and I remember hearing something about that, but it never dawned on me that Harrenhal was so pivotal in the society, because whenever you see the Game of Thrones series, it's not.
Yes,
it's kind of like shucked away.
Honey, we're going to get a battle under the God's Eye, and the God's Eye is by Harrenhal.
Yeah, and speaking of, did you catch that bit where King's Landing had a fucking... Sorry.
It's okay. We are not a child-friendly podcast.
But they had the weirwood.
Yes.
In King's Landing. At the time in Game of Thrones, there's no weirwoods there for the old
there's
gods.
no weirwoods. And that just, I have a minuscule bone to pick there, because technically when the Andals conquered, they are the ones that burned the weirwoods. So... why would the Targaryen... which Targaryen chopped down that tree are we, Because in my mind, it kind of should already been gone, because the Andals chopped all the trees down in the south, and the Andals were before the Targaryens.
Yeah, see, I wonder how they play with it this season.
Yeah, that was one thing that made me a little curious. I see what you mean there. Let's get into some character discussion. Who was the most standout for you?
Okay, now you'll have to forgive me. I'm not real good with their names.
It's okay.
But the main chick's uncle, the king's brother.
Daemon.
Yes, I don't know about you, and I don't know if anybody else picked this up, and I don't know if it's because I've been corrupted by Game of Thrones with the Lannisters, but I get major mad vibes between the uncle and the niece.
Turn around?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Daddy.
I mean, he's with this lady who's in a brothel, and he's all about her, and he doesn't treat her that gently. You see what I mean? And so it kind of adds like a reverence.
I'm a strong believer in every single one of Daemon's romances being legitimate in whatever way that they are. And he does have care, and there is a connection there with Miss Arya. She understands him on another level, but she offered him a maiden, and she offered him a silver-haired beauty. I'm just saying, I'm excited.
She knew.
You were supposed to get those vibes. Major sort of things happen in the books.
Okay. With
that. There's a big question. Did he deflower her? Was it a whole Cruel Intentions thing where he just taught her? Like, there are questions. And there is, like, rumors he... give the girl to me for bride. No one will want her now.
Well, and that's one of them things, having not read the books, I don't know any of that, but it being as they both ride dragons, and they're both in that world, whereas, to my understanding, the father isn't.
The father is not a dragon rider. See, he rode Valerian the Black Dread once. But, yes, he is a dragon king with no dragon.
So it gives them a way of bonding that she can't do with her father, which could add more of a, I don't want to say sensual and erotic, but you know what I mean. As in a different kind of bonding between people, because to my knowledge, through just seeing the first episode, I don't know if any of the rest of the Targaryens even ride dragons.
A lot of them do.
Valerians
do. It is more, they're the House of Flying D's, sweetheart.
Yeah.
The dragons are dragons, and they fly dragons. But, yes, so those vibes are not just Lannister vibes. Let's remember that the incest with the Targaryens has always been there. It is a keep the blood pure, and there are many theories about dragon's blood and why the Targaryens intermarried so much, keeping the blood connection strong. And you see a lot of dragon babies in the books. Like, Daenerys is not the only Targaryen to give birth to a lizard baby, so.
See, and you and I have touched on this before this episode, and I'm so happy we did, because I was calling that. I was so calling it.
There are many many more experienced YouTubers out there than me who touch on the lizard baby ideal.
We'll give a shout out to one.
View LML, Lightbringer. He totally has amazing videos on that. Definitely just released one the other day called The Lizard Babies.
I am a new convert. I have not seen that episode yet. Don't hate me.
Oh, they're amazing. We love him and Minty. Anyway. Yes, so they even hinted at that with Emma Aaron. Did you catch that? The next one will be a dragon. The next one I hatch could be a dragon. And we'll love him anyway when she's in the tub.
Well, yeah, because he makes the comment of dragons like heat. Don't the maesters know this?
Yes. They touched on that.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't catch all that.
And then one of my other favorite things they did was whenever he said he would be born with a crown. Crowns are almost always associated with swords with George R.R. Martin, or knives, or violence.
To whereas in reality, we would associate a crown with like a full head of hair.
Born with a crown, and he was carved out of her. Foreshadowing there in the episode. We'll touch on that later. We are definitely touching on that. We're so touching on that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though.
That scene deserves a reverence that we're not quite to yet at this point in the podcast. So.
Well, it's only the beginning.
Exactly. Let us begin. Sorry. Gotta get that Danny reference in there. How'd you like our new Danny? That's what Rhaenyra is supposed to be, pretty much, but she will be different. They are not the same character by any means, but you are supposed to get those feelings from her in the beginning.
And I won't lie, they did good picking the actress, because for the simple fact, I looked at a picture of Dany dressed up as Daenerys, and the actress for the main girl, what's her name again? Rhaenyra, okay. Yeah, it's going to take me a minute.
The names are going to be difficult this time around because they're not dumbing them down for you. They are not changing Theon's sister like they did,
Yeah.
They changed her name in Game of Thrones. They did a lot of name changing in Game of Thrones because they didn't expect their audience to pay attention.
But we were. Let me emphasize, the whole world was.
Yes. So, we're paying attention now, too.
Yes, we are.
So they're not changing the names this time. You're going to have to remember the difference between Rhaenys and Rhaenyra and all the Targaryens.
And the one I'm referencing to is Rhaenyra, correct?
Yes.
I looked at a picture of Daenerys dressed up as her and Rhaenyra dressed up as Rhaenyra, and they did really good with finding an actress with similar bone structure and someone who looks like they could be related.
Yes. Well, and that's an important distinction because no matter what you see moving forward, there's an important detail to remember. Daemon and Rhaenyra's children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-great-great-great-great-greats are what led to Dany. It is their blood that hers comes from.
So wait, I'm right? With Rhaenyra and Daemon?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yes! Thank you for that spoiler.
You're welcome. That's not even a spoiler. I totally think we're gonna get into that in the next episode because why else would Viserys hold a blade to his brother's throat?
Yeah, that's no joke. That's some serious stuff, especially for kings.
You are not a conqueror. That's what he says. You are not a conqueror, but he conquered your daughter, Viserys. Was there any characters that give you instant bad guy vibes? Who do you like? Villain of the episode. Who do you think?
The Queen Who Never Was. And
Really?
I love her for it because she gives me major Cersei vibes, but like if she was an English lady with class.
See, I got everything I wanted Catelyn to be from Rhaenys.
And I can see that too because she seems very okay with the fact that she's the Queen Who Never Was because she's got a decent position in the first episode from what I've seen.
Oh.
But I feel like there's so much animosity that's possible. Exactly.
Think about that, though. That's an insult. Every single time she hears it, that's an insult.
Exactly. Which would make someone angry and mean and possibly make them villainesque. Okay. If that makes sense. And that's why she gave me those vibes.
I can appreciate that. Did you appreciate Corliss's defense of her?
Oh, the fact that he could have Baratheon's tongue if he wished? Was that comment?
No, Lord Corlys.
Her husband, correct?
Yes. I liked that too, but every time he stands up in defense of her. How do you feel about those? I love that. I just love it.
As he should.
I know.
You know, that's his job.
I just fucking love it. Well,
that's her man.
Yeah. I just love it. Well, and you got to think about it too. It wasn't just his wife who was denied. It was his daughter.
His whole family lineage.
His whole family lineage was denied. And he's a made man where every single other motherfucker standing around him was given, pretty much. Their families have been in their seats for millennia. His family was damn near bankrupt whenever he got that throne. And he is the one who raised it back to the power that it is. So, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see the Valerians more. I fucking love them.
Yes. I want to see the character development. I think it's going to be great.
Yes. So, my villain of the episode aligns with a lot of everybody else's. Otto Hightower. Oh, he's a pimp.
Oh, the hand of the king?
He's a pimp. He's a pimp.
Yeah.
He's a pimp.
The way he treated his little girl, man. He needs whipped and flogged in the town square.
She comes to you in tears because she is being triggered. Her best friend, like her surrogate sister's mother, just died. And I'm sure Emma stepped into a position of mother to Alicent. And you say, wear your mother's dress. He's a pimp.
Yeah, he's basically asking his daughter to seduce the king.
Exactly. Offer him comfort. Oh! And she's all like, I'm sorry. Bitch, go away. I don't want your apologies. You're a liar. When somebody dies, nobody wants to hear that fucking hollow, I'm sorry for your loss. Tell me.
Well, I mean, I can agree with that, because if you're not ready to... If you're not fully processed in the loss, the I'm sorry doesn't do anything really for you. It doesn't fix it. It lets you know that somebody else is there for you. But aside from that, it doesn't really add any help to your emotions.
It doesn't. Oh, you're sorry for me. How is it your fault?
Oh, great, you're pitying me.
What did you do that caused it? Why are you sorry? Yeah, thanks for the pity.
And for a king to be put in that position is really kind of almost reverse psychology, because kings aren't used to being treated that way.
And it's the fact that it should be obvious to Viserys exactly what's happening in that moment. You get a young girl coming to you the night of your wife's or a funeral, if not death, a few days after, a month after. What does she want? You're the king. What does she want?
Exactly.
Who sent her?
And you can't tell me that little girl's okay with becoming her best friend's auntie. Or stepmom.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And can we comment on the fact that he made the decision to kill his wife?
First, I want to talk about just the scene. Before we get about what's going on in the scene, any of that. We can discuss our outrage with Viserys here in a moment. I just want to say, Miguel Sapochnik is so fucking talented. Because if you're going to comment on something, you don't have to tell me your opinion to tell me your opinion.
Yeah.
Put it there. Put it out there. Show me how bad it is. Don't tell me what to think. Let me form it on my own. And he did that. The way they supplanted it with the tournament. And there's been a lot of people who've asked, why did the tournament get so bloody so quickly? It's just a tournament. It's just a games. I understand that question in the storytelling. But that choice for filmography, they did it because they wanted to show that example. Emma says very, very important things that lead to what happens in the scene. She says, this is a royal room and this is how I serve. She knew she was not going to have the choice. That's not her womb. That's why the choice was not given to Emma. That's not her womb. That is a royal womb. You are carrying the heir. The choice is not yours. the choice is everybody in the realms besides you.
That's true.
2, how she serves. That is exactly how women served in medieval times.
Yeah, see, and I can't dispute that.
So the way that scene was filmed, because they commented on the horrible atrocities without actually commenting on it. Now we can get into some outrage, because I just wanted to, that was not violence porn. It served a purpose.
It did serve a purpose.
I knew Emma was going to die, and I was still shocked. I was absolutely mortified that was happening to her. Even though I knew about the Air for a Day as a book reader, I was absolutely mortified that that's how it happened. And that's good storytelling.
It's irony.
Yeah.
Complete irony.
But yes, let's yell at Viserys now, because I was yelling at Viserys. That motherfucker! He didn't even tell her!
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a thing if they had, like, sat and had the conversation like, honey, you're losing your battle. We need to save the baby.
Yeah.
And she would have been like, okay, instead of being scared in bed while she's getting
she
sliced
knew.
into.
That's my thing. She knew that it's the royal womb. Just tell her, and she will hold herself down for you.
Exactly.
She knows her job. Emma was one of... She's a queen. She knows she was a good queen. She's delivered one heir. She got married at 11. Had her first baby at 13, and everybody's... Why did she have 5 miscarriages? Why the fuck do you think so?
Exactly.
And... Oh, yeah. And he didn't even tell her. They're just gonna bring the baby out. They're just gonna bring the baby out. Yeah. Absolutely. Viserys deserves every single fucking prick that he gets from that throne.
I agree. Just for that reason. You know, there's so many other ways that could have been handled, because no mother on the birthing bed is going to choose to get rid of the baby.
That's... You never know.
And if they do choose,
if there
that's
is
understandable.
If there is a possibility to have another child afterwards, or for her to live and she already has children, I support that decision. 100. I support your decision no matter what you choose.
Exactly.
There was no real choice there. She was going to die either way. She is the queen. Her job is to produce the heir.
And she had already told him that she wasn't going to have another in the bath.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, it makes sense where they took it and how they did it. But...
You're still...
Something should have been said to her between them. They should have had a tender moment to where they could have said goodbye before they brought the baby out. Because the way they did that, they just ripped all the love everybody had for the queen out of their chests.
Well, no, they whenever they ripped the child from her womb, yeah.
Yeah.
You just tore everything away from her.
And how everybody gets up at the tournament, but her daughter's sitting there and no one says
anything. Yes. And I was so, like, it broke my heart because I love Rhaenys. I love Rhaenys so much. And I just wanted her to go to Rhaenyra. I just wanted her to. But it wasn't the time yet. We will see. I really want to see, at least. I'm not going to say we will see it because I don't know. But I really, really would love to see Rhaenys kind of take her under. Especially with what we're going to see in the future. I don't necessarily want to drop all the spoilers because we'll discuss them.
Yeah.
But with what I know at least happens with Rhaenyra's marriages in the future, I would love to see Rhaenys just not necessarily try to supplant Emma, but at least offer, you know.
And Rhaenys is the queen who never was? Just making sure I got my names right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Then I would be totally down with that, because then,
Yeah.
See?
You know why I want to see that now? You already have Corlys who wants to back Daemon, so let's just go there. So we've just covered the death of Aemma Arryn. How did you feel about the funeral? Because I loved the interaction between Daemon and Rhaenyra.
Well, I think it's really interesting that they used the dragon in the ceremony, because you don't normally see that in Game of Thrones or anything, because of course there weren't no dragons most of the time.
There were no Targaryens.
Exactly.
But you did get the hint where when Joffrey and Marjorie take the date to the Sept to see where they're going to get married, you hear that discussion about how the Targaryens burned their dead.
Yes.
And so, that always made me kind of go, well, they knew the Long Night was coming.
Well, they had to have.
Well, not only did they have dragons, and it's like an obvious go-to, but especially with the story that they're going now, Targaryen kings knew the Long Night was coming. They knew the dead would rise, so why wouldn't they burn their dead?
You know, and that makes a lot more sense. But I especially loved the moment between Rhaenyra and Daemon. Mm-hmm. Whenever they spoke, and he's like, you know, everybody's waiting on you.
Well, and it's the fact that she was the one who was left to deal with that. Her father couldn't even man up enough.
Well, he didn't have a dragon.
He couldn't even man up enough to try to go just have it done. Anybody can say Dracarys.
Yeah.
It's Valerion. I mean, the dragon tamers use High Valerian.
Well, but at the same token, would it not be the Targaryens' version of saying obituary? You know, because the spouse isn't always the one to give the obituary due to the mourning and such, so sometimes family members will do it in their stead. So was that what Rhaenyra was essentially doing?
Yes, I get where you're coming from. It was another thing that pissed me off with her. She was, you know, she had such a valid point there. Do you think my father was happy for the day he had a son?
And you know, I honestly think he hurt her.
And now, exactly. Like, why wouldn't Viserys know High Valerian? It's not like they were talking behind his back.
It was just the language they spoke.
Yeah, so, I mean, she didn't care. She didn't care. She wanted him to hear her, and I'm glad. Go, Rhaenyra. That's gonna be me the whole time, just so you know.
That's okay. But I give her
I will
props.
admit it. I have a bias.
That's okay. There ain't nothing wrong with having a favorite character.
Yes.
But there's also, like, you know, with the idea of her speaking in Old Valerian, to Daemon, it gives also I almost want to say, like a closed community of people who could hear it. So she wasn't outwardly slighting her father.
Exactly.
In, like, English, like
she was not slighting the king, she was slighting her father. Yes. That's what it was. Yes. Then that protected her.
I think that did
if
too.
She would have, it would have been open to even more treasonous actions for Rhaenyra. Yay! We need any more of those.
Right. Speaking of, is that the only reason Daemon got his ass chewed? Because he said it in English? Like, if he had said it in Old Valyrian, would he have been fine?
Oh, we're talking about the air for a day now.
Well, we're talking about treason.
Yeah. Well, I love how his reaction is, we all grieve in our own ways, because notice in that orgy scene, he's not a participant.
No, it makes me think he was set up.
He was. That was so a setup. Otto loves to hate Daemon. Okay? If they would have just gotten rid of Otto, they wouldn't have the problem that they deal with. Daemon doesn't want the throne, and in my opinion, at least, I don't feel like Daemon wants the throne.
And you know, I got that same feeling.
Well, and that's because Matt Smith has come out and said that his perspective on Daemon is that's not what drives him. He wants to be acknowledged. The blood of the dragon runs thick. The job of a Targaryen boy is to remain in court, unless they have drives that drive them elsewhere.
And that would make sense.
The job of any boy in a royal family is to remain at court and support the family. A bride gets married off. Why was Daemon married off and was supposed to have been sent away to the Vale? I get why he's pissed. He's a male.
Speaking of, who's he married to? I know they said he references the bronze bitch.
The reason why, but that's in the book. Every line that he said there, he is quoted of saying in the book.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
He's bold.
Yeah, he's really bold, because you know Bronze Yohn Royce in Game of Thrones? The one that runs around with Sansa there at the end?
Okay.
Bronze Yohn Royce? Bronze Royce? He's married to a Royce.
Oh, okay. Now that makes more sense. I was just sitting there.
My bronze bitch.
Is she a gorgeous, like, tan lady? That's what I was thinking.
No, she wears bronze armor.
Oh.
Yes.
That's kind of appealing. I can get with that.
And Damon can't, apparently.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate the hot Legolas, like the buff man image we got of Damon?
Yes. Cop Damon. Cop Damon gives me hardcore Dirty Legolas vibes. So you didn't get villain vibes out of that?
Out of Damon?
Nah, out of Damon's gold company situation. I was worried.
It didn't give me villain vibes just for the simple fact I know from Game of Thrones, the Golden Company were Targaryen bastards that supposedly went and, fought. I watched some YouTube videos on it, so whenever I saw them all in gold, it made me think of the beginning of that.
Gold cloaks are different than the Golden Company.
But I was thinking of the Golden Company, because remember we talked about them and the Blackfires and the possibility that Bronn might have been a Blackfire, and that's the reason why he never gave his last name. That's what it brought into my mind, personally.
I mean, I could see Bronn being of the Golden Company. I don't necessarily think Bronn would be a Blackfire.
See, and now I am in no way a Game of Thrones for sure, guys. So as you're listening to me, just understand I am uneducated and I just like it a lot, okay? So don't hate on it. This is just some stuff that I've tossed around in my brain.
I don't claim to be the most educated. I'm probably wrong on a lot of things. But I was worried that his crackdown was going to be taken as unnecessary cop violence.
Well, he had a good point, with all the royalty coming into King's Landing, if, there's thievery and stuff, what good does that do for any of the high families?
Well, and you see that imitated by Bronn whenever he cracks down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave me those same vibes, and I was like,
You're supposed to get a rogue vibe from Damon, and it's funny that you compare him to Bronn, because Bronn is a rogue in the books. He fights like a panther, is described as in the Vale when he's defending Tyrion. So, yeah. Okay. I like that. I like where you went with that. Definitely. Let's talk about the fake outrage from Otto Hightower whenever Daemon insulted his wife. You're not so obsessed with Daemon unless you're obsessed with Daemon.
Yeah. I'm about to say, I think he's just got the hots for Daemon.
I was about to say, because, really, if you missed your wife so much, why would you suggest your daughter wear her dress like that?
Exactly. You wouldn't want to put your daughter in that position. You would hold your daughter to more of a close standard because she would look like your wife who just passed.
Right.
You'd want to protect her and not put her in any of those situations, and it just did not seem like he had that parental connection with her.
Yes. As an acolyte, now, let's talk about this, Otto's connection to the Maesters. Let's talk about them shady Maesters.
Yeah. That was...
Give me your vibes. I want to know if you caught the vibes that all the LML people know about.
Well, it reminded me of whenever Daenerys wants the lamb maiden to heal Drogo. And his itty-bitty cut that apparently festers and kills him. He's got this one little spot on his back that's not healing, okay? Well, if none of the maesters you have can fix it, you can't tell me there's no maester around that can't fix it.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. There's some death by 1,000 cuts vibes coming from Viserys, too. And I want to open a discussion here in a moment about the throne. But... Maesters, why did Otto need to have a raven sent? After that, send a raven. Then right afterwards, the queen has all that issue into the child bed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Major Littlefinger vibes.
There's,
Am I the only one who thought that?
No, but I hadn't went there yet. See, I had always gone to Tywin with Otto, but definitely more Littlefinger.
Well, that's what he seems to be doing. He's trying to pull the right strings to get his family positioned where he wants. Because obviously he wants to be in the king's lineage with his family.
Unlike Tywin, who understood that the hand had more power.
Exactly.
He doesn't want the power, he wants the fame.
I agree with you there. I think that is 100% correct. Currently, at this time, in the first episode.
Exactly. Great to make a distinction. So, about the Iron Throne, I have a theory. Multiple theories. First theory is not necessarily as large. It's about why the throne wasn't necessarily as large when Robert had it. We hear about Robert getting rid of all memorabilia from the Targaryens, but it also makes sense for him to get rid of all the excess swords around the throne when he defeated the Targaryens, because those extra swords are a sign of the conquest. Those are all the swords that Aegon collected from the Seven Kingdoms. So to me, it would make sense in a way that Robert would get rid of those, not only the dragon skulls, but all the extra thrones around the throne, because the Targaryens are no longer in power, and the realm doesn't need a reminder of Aegon's conquest. He just didn't get rid of the throne because he won the throne.
See, and that's interesting, because, you know, you see that dragonfire burns stone. So it had to be...
Melts it, yeah.
Yeah, melts it, excuse me. It had to be some kind of... How did he separate that whole, like, impaler section of the throne from the actual throne without dragons?
Yeah, that's an idea. How did that happen?
Because if it was melted under dragonfire, that would have been such a high heat that the fact that the swords are even still standing is amazing.
Yeah.
How did he separate all that to put his family's thrones around him? You know, I'm speaking of Robert, not as in the current Targaryen on the throne. But
yes, I know what you mean, yeah.
How did those renovations go under? I mean, I understand the dragon skulls and moving those and all that,
yeah.
But
how would he? I don't know. I don't know how that happened.
Like, if the producers want to give, like, a shout-out and tell me how, you let me know.
Well, yeah, we just need some sort of... Or even in the comments, headcanon me in the comments about how right? You think they got them apart.
I mean, unless they use wildfire. That's the only other way I can think of.
But no, my other theory about the throne is how it chooses who can sit it. Because this is not the first... Viserys is going to be the first person on screen we see getting poked by the throne, but this is not the first person we've heard about in universe. King Aerys the Mad, supposedly as well, would be cut and pricked and stabbed by the throne when he sat on it. My theory is that something created by Dragonfire in its essence being a magical thing, a magical entity, whether it, well, not necessarily of itself, but it comes from a magical entity. Dragons are magical in nature. So, especially at least in universe.
Yeah.
That, you know, in the Westeros Ice and Fire universe, they are magical beasts. So therefore their fire would be magical. So anything created within that fire would have magical properties, wouldn't it?
Well, see,
so that would leave the throne with some sort of magical, maybe, sentience.
And that would make sense, you know, because we hear in Game of Thrones where Robert Baratheon, he basically complains for the fact he has to sit on it anyway.
Yes.
You know, and then he tells Ned Stark that, oh, you'll hate it more than I do.
Yes.
Which kind of reference to there's discomfort in sitting in the seat to begin with, and the pokes and prods would make sense.
Well, and I think that that's also just a comment as well from George, is ruling shouldn't be easy. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. They don't necessarily wear a crown all the time. Uneasy is the ass that sits the seat.
That's true, but here's my question, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but the current king in House of the Dragon is wearing armor every time he sits in the throne, is he not?
I mean, I think so.
Didn't Cersei Lannister always wear armor whenever she sat on the Iron Throne?
Some sort of... Yeah, she had a lot of meddling on her as well.
Does that maybe explain the reason of why they didn't get poked and prodded as much?
It does.
I mean, a conqueror would wear armor on the throne.
Yes. But you also have to wear armor to protect yourself from it. And that speaks to the fact that you have to arm yourself against everything when you're the king.
Exactly.
But I have a headcanon now that the throne is sentient.
Well, and people have been known throughout history, our history especially, to dip their swords in poisons and such. And don't get me wrong.
Ooh, like the Dornish.
Exactly. So if you're going to go and melt all these steel, they obviously did it with a dragon who was taking care of the temperature of its heat, you know what I mean? There's no guarantee that all that would have come off if somebody's blade had been tipped in anything.
Valid.
So if he's getting these nicks and things, there's no guarantee that that isn't from some kind of poison from centuries ago, or...
Who's to say anybody couldn't come up and poison the throne
Exactly.
while the throne room's empty?
Because reckon on unbroken skin, it's probably not going to do as much. But you poke yourself with it.
Yes. And there's been plenty times within even real history. Elizabeth I had many a different assassination attempts where they
She had a poisoned
her clothes.
dress. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a bit in that movie about that, I believe.
Elizabeth, yeah, the Golden Age and all that stuff. So we haven't really discussed Alicent Hightower too much. And I feel like with what we're going to get into the future, I want to get your opinion on her now in the first episode as a non-book reader. Because as a book reader, I am biased against her.
Well, with how she interacts with Rhaenyra, it makes me think that she loves her more than just platonically, if that makes sense. Just because of how she's laying there going over the studies with the book, and how she's like, well, you're just always so argumentative whenever you're worried, and, oh, well, this and that, and it kind of gave me, like, they have a really strong bond, but it's, even if it is platonic, that it's a little more than what a platonic relationship would be.
Okay. Well, kind of like how we express ourselves.
Well, yeah. You know?
I get what you're saying. It's deeper than platonic.
Exactly. Not necessarily that they're lesbian or anything.
No, there doesn't have to be anything sexual there.
Exactly. But they've got, like, that kind of relationship, and due to the fact with her needing a better dad, let's be honest.
Both of them.
Yeah. They have a way of bonding. And especially now since Rhaenyra's lost her mother, I have a feeling that bond's going to grow stronger. So with her going and trying to seduce the king...
It was a chance for that bond to grow stronger.
But I have a feeling if Little Miss Rhaenyra hears about it, it's not going to be the same. And, you know, it'd be like... It'll never happen, but it'd be like me coming on to your dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You wouldn't be cool with that.
I mean,
your dad's cool
weird.
And all, but I'm not interested like
it's
that.
It's just weird.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just fucking weird.
But
no thanks, I love you, but no.
Exactly. But with, like, how the Targaryens interact with how brothers and sisters and family members can marry, I'm not really sure that it would cause that much problem in the story. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Due to the fact that these familial and romantic bonds are so different than what normal people would be able to do and be okay with.
Yes. I feel you there. But I want to toss out there that these are both very court-savvy girls. They grew up in court. So they understand the manipulations of court and the possibilities of it. And I feel like that'll be what sets Rhaenyra off. She's going to feel like Alicent is taking advantage of the situation.
Well, see, and I think Alicent's a little too naive.
Yes.
I'll be honest. So, like, whenever Rhaenyra comes at her for that, if she does in this series, that Alicent's not really going to know what to do because, in her mind, she did what her dad told her.
Exactly.
And she's a pawn, basically, for her father.
She is.
So, she's going to get the lashback that her father deserves versus him shielding himself with Alicent.
That's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to shield himself with Alicent.
And that makes me really sad, just seeing a child have to go through that with their
I feel like
series.
Alicent's story is going to be played as more tragic than it was in the books.
I'll be honest now.
And I like that.
She reminds me of Catelyn Stark. You know how we don't like Catelyn Stark.
Oh, see, my issues with Catelyn is like, if you'd have just listened to fucking Ned and went home and taken care of your fucking children...
Well, even then, taking Tyrion to Winterfell would have been the better plan.
Yeah.
Especially if Robb was already there. You know what I mean? Because then you can just call the Bannermen, You don't let the Lannisters anywhere near Winterfell, and you attack them on your home ground where you already know the terrain. That's basic 101. And
Right.
you could have then called in your grain bins and everything and withstood a siege.
She'd already made it to the Vale. You were in safe territory already. I mean, the Riverlands is before the Vale.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, well, they're at least right around in the same area, and once you get to the Riverlands, you know you're going to be fine. But it had to go that way, or else the story wouldn't have worked.
And I understand that, but if they would have went and did
you
that...
get a whole lot, you're missing a whole lot of Catelyn's story.
By not
as
being
a
a book
non-book
reader.
Alrighty, so let's just hit a couple of last notes. So, we know that Kristen Cole is not a standout to you.
No, he's a doofus. That's what he presents himself as in the beginning episode. It's like, oh yeah, a little someone from nowhere. It's like...
He is Dornish.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember now. They did comment the fact he was Dornish.
So yes, he is baseborn out of Dorne. Baseborn is not bastard. That just means lowborn.
Okay.
So he's out to establish himself.
And that makes sense because nobody really knows who he is. They talk about it while they're in the stands of, oh, he's new. That makes a lot of sense. But to me, he doesn't seem like a real vital character right now. But then again, it's only the first episode.
Exactly.
He's kind of dorky and doofus looking.
That just makes me laugh that you, because you're gonna get some more of him. He's not a one-off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yay.
You're gonna... Alright. So the ending. At the ending, Rhaenyra is finally named Viserys' heir.
Yes.
How do you feel about the connections they've made with Game of Thrones to House of the Dragon and the ending?
I think it's crazy that Rickon is mentioned because, like I told you, I've been rewatching the first season of Game of Thrones to get some of the major background in their history. Because they introduced a lot of stuff in the first season to kind of reference with.
They are not going to reiterate that.
No, they're not.
You had to have paid attention.
Well, whenever Bran takes the wildling into the catacombs, he points out, oh, here's Rickon Stark, and we actually get to see Rickon Stark take the oath that Daenerys then later references.
Well, Torrhen Stark made an oath, but it's good that you point out they didn't cover the fact that the oath was reiterated by Rickon in Game of Thrones. The oath that Daenerys throws in Jon's face is Torrhen Stark's oath.
Oh, see, I always just assumed after watching the House of the Dragon, he's the first Stark they referenced in the beginning of Game of Thrones in the catacombs.
They did reference him there, but I think it's fascinating that you point out that's a reiteration of Torrhen Stark's oath to the heir of the dragon.
Yes.
And it's very valid. That's valid. I guess Dany had more validation than she even knew, which makes sense because she lost all of her family history.
Yeah,
But I'm curious, and I'm going to have to reread to see if he upholds that oath. Because Game of Thrones and even George has it really ingrained in our minds that the Starks are true to their oaths. So
that they're an honorable house.
Exactly. So I'm going to have to go reread the books and see if he actually kept that oath to Rhaenyra or not. Yeah,
because that was something major that caught my attention because that's the only connection to the Starks that you know in Game of Thrones in the current House of the Dragon show, and they show a little tidbit there, and I was just so excited, and I was like, oh my god, there's a Stark!
I know, we're mad about the North here. We are mad about the North here.
Let's be honest, a direwolf cannot kill a dragon.
No, a direwolf can't kill a dragon, but...
We can argue about the ending of Game of Thrones and that.
There's a reason why we're just never going to talk about Game of Thrones on my podcast. It's just going to be the books we discuss. Because as much as I loved the beginning of it, yeah. So.
But I thought that was one of the coolest parts about seeing everybody take their oaths under the heir as well. And I didn't understand that, Robert Baratheon made such a huge mistake by not naming his heir.
Yes.
Like the Targaryens were. Because, I mean, we didn't see any of that in Game of Thrones. So the idea that the Targaryens were avid people to declare heirs before their time was up.
Yes, their heir was established. The heir ruled from Dragonstone. So that is a valid point. Robert Baratheon never named an heir, and that's half of the problem as to what led to the Five Kings. Besides the fact that the incest, you know.
Yeah.
That Stannis knew about, and that Ned didn't tell anybody about.
Right.
Except for Stannis. Like, come on, Ned. Oh. But yeah, I'm just very excited to see what's going to come of the show. And
I want to watch the next episode.
I want to watch it already and talk about it with you already. Like, I'm so excited to see your perspectives moving forward, because mine's tainted. I have a biased opinion.
Well, but you have also read the books.
Exactly.
I feel very grateful that you've allowed me to be on this podcast with you and talk about this, because this is my major fangirl time, so thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on and letting me interview you, and I'm looking super forward to next week's. Thanks everyone for listening. Be sure to drop a like and a comment, leave a subscription, and come check us out again next week.